The Quran, Surah 105, Al-Fil, which translates as the elephant. The root meaning of Al-Fil is the boaster or bragger, or a person of weak judgment, or, well, an elephant. The title of this chapter 105 of the Quran, although typically translated as the elephant to mislead us, in fact holds a much deeper esoteric meaning. The chapter is guiding us to be aware of people who have the habit of dreaming without a proper vision and plan of action. The respected author wants to draw our attention by questioning us into an internal debate around the energy we know as boastfulness or arrogance and its consequences by design of the Creator. The divine is asking us, or Muhammad as Muslims believe, about these behaviors and mindsets as a reminder, so we don't find ourselves in such delusions and empty words of boastfulness. It's asking, have we not seen such people who only dream, boast, brag, and do nothing, and the outcomes they face as a result? It's a warning to the immortal being to be mindful of our delusions, as they can lead us to harm. Let's think and analyze this surah further. Upon analysis, you will find that the verses in this chapter are in the present continuous tense, so it cannot be that it's referring to an event of the past. It is evident that we may have come across such people in our own lives. The verse wants us to acknowledge the detriment such a deluded mindset can bring forth. So by discerning this verse correctly, we can see that it is indeed telling us about refraining from being boastful and making empty claims with no backing. The Honourable Book Quran wants us to identify this wrong habit that leads to a false notion of contentment, which then turns into a strong belief. Due to this registration of the wrong belief type into our minds, we create these delusions of grandeur. In this state of delusion, we face obstacles but continue to trust our decisions, which were based on unfounded illusions, which in turn lead us on to the entirely wrong path in the end, and not the success we were hoping for or boasting about. The illusion within us becomes so strong that it compels us to take wrong decisions based on this hypothesis, and those decisions then lead us towards wrong actions, which further lead to the crumbling of intellect and confidence, followed by bad consequences, and ultimately we become a spent force, good for nothing. The house of cards falls down eventually. This is the universal truth this verse is trying to convey to its reader, not the distorted lies you find in mainstream translations that Muslims blindly believe to be true. The distorters only care about hiding true knowledge from the masses, and all the mainstream translations are designed to fit their narrative regardless of what is truly intended by the Creator. This is true of most mainstream religions. Therefore, we must awaken to this social engineering and break this delusional spell that we are all under, where we accept lies blindly. We think we are pleasing God, the deity, instead of using our intellect to discern truths we were intended to know. Fostering an Al-Fil type mindset is a sure way to expend our precious life force into a black hole of nothingness. It's a false pipe dream that we inflated ourselves, and basically a trap we set up for ourselves. This is all because our consciousness, or Rabuka, as referred to in this verse, is designed to react to whatever we upload or feed our minds. Energy flows where attention goes. It is informing us that our mindsets will drive our path in life. So we must be mindful of ideas of grandiose that come up with in us to ensure we don't fall into these states of delusion, because this superfluous imagination will gradually create a false feeling of hope, as though one is soaring up in the sky. Our consciousness can make us feel the state of bliss, or Jannah, and even Jahannam, or hell, which is a state of stagnation. It's all dependent on what type of intelligence we provide it. The whole game of this life is to understand the mechanics of our consciousness and the way it's designed and how it interacts with the holosphere based on what we are transmitting in and out. This is why the true Quranic knowledge is so essential to get across to mankind, who are en masse suffering from delusions of grandeur. Our entire world is a series of lies and programming given to us since birth. We must wake up and take control, or else we will remain in a state of ignorance and delusion. Hence the Quran, which is a book about the human mind, is calling out this critical state one can find oneself in if mindful. The whole message of the Quran is to become self-aware and navigate this realm correctly and to our advantage. The words Tayrun Ababil, which are used in this chapter and usually described as birds soaring, is used as a metaphor to describe what is commonly known as a mental disorder in psychology as flight of fantasy, and can be found as a condition in the psychologist's dictionary. It refers to an unrealistic idea or fantastic notion, a pipe dream. For example, she was engaged in flights of fancy, such as owning $1 million house. This idiom uses flight in the sense of a soaring of the imagination. This is what Tayrun Ababil means. So let's look at the surah from a traditional translation, which most mainstream Muslims believe to be true, all based on scholars attributing these verses to be describing a historical event, an event which is highly questionable from researching the sources and historical records. Have you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not seen how your Lord dealt with the owners of the elephant? The mainstream tells us this is referring to the elephant army, which came from Yemen under the command of Abraha al-Ashram, intending to destroy the Kaaba at Makkah in 570 AD. This is the same year they attribute to the Prophet's birth. But the historical records tell us something else. It goes on to say, did he not make their plot go astray? And he sent against them birds in flocks, striking them with stones of sigil, baked clay. And he made them like an empty field of stalks, of which the corn has been eaten up by cattle. The hadith fabricators have done a fantastic job of fitting a historical event and attributing it to this chapter of the Quran, and in doing so have perfectly distorted the universal message of the Honourable Messenger unbeknownst to majority of people reading the text. By interpolating their distorted understanding with the pure message of the Quran and inserting the historical story to justify their interpretation of the verses, successfully altering the true esoteric meanings of the Arabic script. The folly of this interpretation is that the surah is addressed solely to the Prophet, thus confining the universal message to him only, and by asking him, have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the owners of the elephants? But hang on, he had to be there to have seen that unfold, right? Also, according to the same hadith, the Honourable Messenger was not even born, or maybe an infant of some months at the time of this event taking place. But funnily, it's also the same year King Abraha died, so did he attack from beyond the grave? And how could the Prophet have witnessed this event, as per verse 1 of this chapter? Both the traditional interpretation and the hadith are clearly contradicting each other. The traditional story related to this surah promotes a mystical and fatalistic ideology among the followers of the traditional Arab religion we called Islam today, whereas this contrary to the actual message and promoting something entirely different. Let's see. So the historic story goes like this. The king named Abraha invades the house of Allah, Kaaba, in Mecca. The chief of Mecca, Abu Muttalib, decides not to confront the king or defend the Kaaba, but instead leaves the matter to God. As the king's army was invading the house of Allah, the traditional message conveys that he let Allah protect it from destruction. And this was Abu Muttalib's arbitration. How noble, how wonderful. This story urges the readers to trust Allah, as miracles can happen if we sincerely trust in Him. But innocent readers do not realize the deeper meaning and believe in the historical narratives given instead, which in itself is flawed. For example, the so-called House of Allah was under the jurisdiction of Abu Muttalib, and he clearly didn't do his job. In the pre-Islamic era, the Kaaba contained 360 idols, and it was the duty of the chief of Mecca to take care of the shrine. But instead, Abu Muttalib chose to hide in the mountains and watch the invaders of Kaaba. But lucky for him, Allah sent a flock of small birds, throwing tiny stone missiles on a massive army consisting of elephants, and destroyed them. I mean, he wasn't even a Muslim, because according to the mainstream narrative, this event took place prior to the advent of Islam. So do scholars want us to believe the pagan Arabs were Muslims? What the readers can understand by believing in such stories is that if we worship God sincerely, He can do wonders for us. However, this belief keeps us so occupied, worshipping day and night, hoping to please the invisible God with various different sets of rituals and prayers, that we lose all logic and reasoning. This diminishes our divinity. If we become complacent that God will sort everything out, our dedication towards work takes a back seat, and the appeasement of a personified God is given the utmost priority rather than planned action, thus incurring losses in various aspects of life. Such unfounded beliefs inculcate mental disorders such as flight of fantasy, narcissism, schizophrenia, etc., which is an unrealistic and detrimental way of looking towards this sacred gift of intelligence and life. Life is far more sacred and worth worshipping than anything else. So the lesson here is we mustn't delude ourselves, make unfounded plans, and go around boasting when we have no substance to it, creating grandiose ideas. So now we understand the context and distortions. Let's read the same verses with the correct translations in place and get the real meaning of what the Oversoul is trying to convey to us as individuals, so that we can utilize to our benefit in this life sim, instead of hoping some birds or an elephant might do the trick. Before reading the verse correctly, it's good to keep in mind that much of the style in which the Oversoul speaks to us through the Quran, it's questioning our own experience and drawing the truth from that. It's all about realizations. The message can only be downloaded or understood by a true, pure-hearted inquirer. The correct interpretation, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Don't you continuously observe how your Rabb consciousness dealt with those who possess the habit of boasting, exaggerating, or magnifying? Alam yuj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. Didn't He, Rabb, always draw their plot into error? وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ. He, Rabb, sent upon themselves a flock of hovering illusions, flights of fancy, تَرْمِيهِمْ بِحِجَارَةٍ مِّن سِجِّيلٍ, striking them with the process of hindrances from delusions of grandeur. فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. So He, Rabb, made them like mentally burnt out. So there we have it, Surah Al-Fil, the deluded boasters. Chapter 105 of the Quran and its true esoteric meaning. This video was inspired by the recent article by the most esteemed teacher and scholar and creator of www.atlikal.com. For the full article and more translations of the Quranic text, please visit the site. Until next time, I'm Afi. Oh, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and do share this video with those who you think will understand. Till next time, may peace be with you.